Burn it, Alpha King Everett Calder said, and Harper Ellison felt 7 years of hiding crack open inside her chest. The royal guards hesitated for half a second, which was the closest anyone in North Star Dominion came to disobeying a king. Then the first clay pot hit the stone path and shattered. Frost sage spilled across the greenhouse floor. Moonmint snapped under a boot. A line of smoke curled up from the copper-burned tray one of the guards had dragged in like this was a crime scene instead of the only place Harper had ever felt safe. She stood 3 feet from Everett, hands dirty from planting, apron dusted with soil, white blonde hair coming loose from its knot, and did not bow. "Those herbs treat bond fever," she said. "They help young wolves sleep after border patrol. They keep frightened omegas from being tracked by men who call control tradition." Everett's eyes stayed cold, gray as a winter road. Scent-masking herbs are banned in royal territory by men who never needed them. A few guards looked away. Someone in the packed courtyard sucked in a breath. Nobody talked to the Alpha King like that, especially not a low-ranking apothecary with dirt on her cheek and no family name worth fearing. Everett stepped closer, his black coat moving in the wind, the silver crest of the royal wolf pinned at his shoulder. "My council found masked scent trails near the east gate. Blackroot residue. False identity markers. Someone inside my pack is hiding what they are." Harper gave a small, humorless laugh. "Congratulations. You found a greenhouse." His jaw tightened. Behind him, Elder Varick watched from the archway with his smooth hands folded over his cane, looking far too pleased for a man witnessing public property damage. That was when Harper understood. This had never been an inspection. It was a performance, a warning. The king had come to destroy the mask in front of the pack, so everyone would remember who ruled here. Another bundle of herbs went into the flame. The scent hit the air sharp and green, then sweet, then gone. Harper's pulse stumbled. The charm woven through her skin for 7 years thinned like ice under spring rain. "Stop," she said, and this time her voice was not steady. Everett heard it. His wolf heard it too. The air changed. Every wolf in the courtyard lifted their head. One guard whispered, "Omega." Harper closed her eyes for 1 second. Too late. Her true scent moved through the broken greenhouse. Rain-washed lavender, young cedar, and a warmth she had spent half her life burying. Everett went still as if the world had put a hand on his chest and shoved. His pupils widened. The royal command in his face fractured, just a little. "No," he said quietly. Not denial. Recognition. Harper looked at him and saw the memory land. A ruined border chapel, a wounded young king, an Omega girl pressing herbs into his shaking hands before vanishing into the snow. Everett took 1 step toward her. "You." Harper lifted her chin, even as the whole pack stared. "Yes, Your Majesty," she said. "The dead girl from your council's favorite lie." Everett Calder did not drag Harper through the citadel like a prisoner. That would have been almost honest. Instead, he walked 3 steps ahead of her while 2 royal guards followed behind, giving the whole thing the polished North Star version of kidnapping. The halls were warm, all dark wood, old stone, and portraits of dead kings who looked like they had personally disapproved of joy. Harper kept her chin up, even with half the pack still staring from the courtyard behind her. She could feel their whispers chasing her through the doors. "Omega. Hidden. Liar. Mate." That last one came softer than the rest, but it cut deeper. Everett stopped outside the council chamber. For 1 second, his hand rested on the brass handle and did not turn it. His shoulders were rigid under the black coat. His wolf was close to the surface. Harper could feel it like a storm behind glass. "You should have told me," he said without looking back. Harper almost laughed. It would have sounded ugly, so she swallowed it. "I was declared dead by your own council. There was not exactly a customer service desk for corrections." He turned then. The hard line of his face shifted, not enough to become gentle, but enough to show the hit landed. "Inside," he said. The council chamber smelled like cedar polish, candle smoke, and old power. A long table stretched beneath the pack banners, each one stitched with the crest of a territory that owed Everett loyalty, whether it liked him or not. Elder Varick took his place near the head of the room, calm as a church bell. Lady Celeste Harrow stood beside him in a cream coat, her pale hair pinned perfectly, her smile soft enough to bruise. "Miss Ellison," Celeste said. "Or is there another name you have been using?" Harper looked at her. "Just Harper. I find one identity is plenty when people stop trying to bury it." Everett's eyes flicked to her, and for half a breath the bond pulled tight between them. Not romance. Not comfort. Recognition, sharp and inconvenient. 7 years ago, she had found him in a collapsed border chapel with fever burning through his wolf and royal blood on his sleeve. She had been 19, terrified, and stupid enough to save a king she thought might save her back. She had pressed bitter herbs into his hands, whispered instructions, and run before dawn. By sunrise, her father was branded a traitor. By nightfall, Harper Ellison was listed among the dead. Varric opened a leather file and slid it across the table. Your family used scent-masking compounds during a coordinated attack on the throne. Harper did not touch the file. My father used them to hide Omega girls from forced bond contracts. Silence moved through the room like cold water. Everett's gaze sharpened. Forced contracts are illegal. So is killing a greenhouse, Harper said. Yet here we are. A guard coughed once and regretted being born. Celeste's smile thinned. Convenient claim from a woman who concealed her nature for years. Harper finally looked at Everett. Ask yourself why I had to. He said nothing. That was the first betrayal of the night. Not the guards. Not the council. His silence. Harper felt it settle over her heavier than any chain. Then Varric leaned forward and said, Your Majesty, if she can mask her scent, she can lie with every breath. Everett looked at Harper, and the mate bond between them warmed like a warning neither of them was ready to trust. Varric did not raise his voice. Men like him never did. They let the room do the pushing for them. A formal scent review is the only safe path forward, he said, tapping one finger on the leather file. Until we know what Miss Ellison truly is, she should be kept from the lower wards, the border sentinels, and any private audience with the king. Harper looked at the old man, then at the 12 council seats arranged by rank. Alpha bloodlines near the fire, Beta commanders along the west wall, Omega representatives at the far end, where the light from the tall windows barely reached. North Star called it balance. Harper called it furniture with opinions. Everett stood at the head of the table, silent, carved out of duty and bad decisions. Lady Celeste stepped forward with that soft, polished expression rich women used when they were about to say something cruel and make it sound like concern. No one is accusing you unfairly, Miss Ellison. But a hidden Omega inside the royal pack does create anxiety. Harper gave her a tired look. That must be hard for everyone. I would hate to inconvenience the people who erased me. A few faces shifted. One younger Beta stared at the table like it had suddenly become fascinating. Everett's mouth moved almost into something, but not enough to save her from the room. Then the chamber doors opened. A young sentinel stumbled in with 2 guards beside him, pale and shaking, one hand pressed hard over his own wrist as if holding himself together by force. His name was Owen Pike. Harper knew him from the East Gate Clinic. He was 22, too proud to admit fear, and always traded his ration apples for extra coffee. Your Majesty, one guard said, breathless. He came off border patrol like this. Royal healers think it is wolf fever. Owen's eyes flickered gold, then back to brown. The air around him smelled wrong. Bitter. Burned. Sharp under the skin. Every alpha in the room went still. Celeste stepped back. Varric said, remove him before he disrupts the review. Harper was already moving. Everett caught her wrist, not hard, but fast. The bond snapped warm between them, startling both of them. Do not touch him if this is Blackroot, he said. Harper looked down at his hand, then up at him. I have been treating your sentinels for 8 months while your council was busy pretending I was dirt with a pulse. She pulled free and crossed the room. Owen flinched when she knelt in front of him. Hey, Harper said softly. Look at me. Not them. Me. His breathing hitched. I cannot make it stop. Yes, you can. You are not broken. You are overloaded. She reached into her apron pocket and found what was left of her emergency herbs. 3 leaves of frost sage, a pinch of dried moon mint, and 1 cracked strip of cedar bark. Not enough for a proper tonic. Enough if the room would stop being useless. She glanced back. Hot water. Clean cup. No silver. Nobody moved. Everett did. He pointed once, and 3 guards suddenly discovered speed. Harper crushed the herbs between her palms, releasing a clean green scent that cut through the bitter edge around Owen. Breathe in for 4, she told him. Hold for 2. Out for 6. Like we practiced. Owen tried. Failed. Tried again. The gold in his eyes faded. The room watched in Omega. They had just called a liar bring a royal sentinel back to himself with a teacup and a voice steady enough to lean on. When Owen finally stopped shaking, Harper sat back on her heels. That was not wolf fever, she said. That was blackroot residue from treated leather. Check his patrol gloves. Everett looked at the guard. The guard checked. His face drained. Inside the glove seam, dark powder clung like ash. Harper stood slowly and met Everett's eyes. My herbs did not threaten your pack, Your Majesty. Someone inside your pack is poisoning it. By sunrise, every patrol glove in the East Barracks had been collected, every saddle strap had been checked, and every guard in North Star Citadel had learned the dangerous difference between an inspection and a king who was quietly furious. Everett did not shout. He did not throw blame around the room. He simply stood in the armory with the blackroot-stained gloves sealed in glass, and one by one, grown wolves remembered urgent reasons to stand straighter. Harper watched from beside the work table, arms folded, still wearing the same ruined apron from the greenhouse because no one had offered her a change of clothes, and she was too stubborn to ask. Miles Rourke, Everett's beta, leaned against a cabinet with the expression of a man who had seen 3 disasters and expected a 4th by lunch. The powder was sewn into the glove seam, Miles said. Not enough to kill. Enough to make a sentinel look unstable in public. Harper nodded. Blackroot does not create madness. It pushes what is already under pressure. Her eyes moved to Everett. Which means someone wanted your border wolves to crack where people could see. Everett's face gave away nothing, but his scent shifted, cold cedar under storm clouds. The bond between them answered before Harper wanted it to, a small tug behind her ribs, like her body had terrible taste and timing. She looked away first. Everett noticed. Of course he noticed. Kings and wolves were both annoying that way. You will stay inside the Citadel until we know who planted it, he said. Harper laughed once. That sounded almost like concern wearing a uniform. Miles made a soft noise into his fist. Everett ignored him. It is a security order. Right? Because calling it care would damage the furniture. His jaw tightened. Not anger this time. Something worse. Guilt trying to find a place to stand. Before he could answer, Elder Varick entered with Lady Celeste at his side, both dressed for morning council as if innocence had a dress code. Varick looked at the sealed glove, then at Harper. How fortunate Miss Ellison knew exactly what to look for. Harper smiled politely. Yes, experience is suspicious when you prefer ignorance. Celeste's gaze slid over Harper's torn sleeve and soil-stained hands. No one is saying you are guilty, only that your presence causes confusion. Funny, Harper said. I was confused too when my greenhouse became a bonfire. Everett turned to Varick. No one touches the evidence without my order. The room went still. It was not a defense, not yet, but it was the first stone placed between Harper and the council. Varick bowed with perfect calm. As your Majesty commands. Later, Everett brought Harper to the locked royal herbarium, a long glass room hidden behind the West Library, where old remedies sat in labeled jars under silver light. Her father's handwriting was still on some of them. Seeing it hit her harder than the council had. Harper reached for a small amber bottle, then stopped with her fingers shaking. Everett saw. He stepped back instead of closer. Good, she thought bitterly. The king could learn. My father made this blend, she said. For wolves coming down from battle stress. He said the strongest packs were not the ones that never broke. They were the ones that knew how to come back. Everett was quiet. I should have known his work. Yes, Harper said. You should have. No softness. No forgiveness. Just truth. She opened the bottle. Frost sage, cedar, moon mint, and beneath it, something dry and ashy that did not belong. Her whole body went cold. Everett noticed the change before she spoke. What is it? Harper lifted the bottle toward him. This was sealed 7 years ago. His eyes sharpened. And she looked toward the council tower beyond the glass. Varick touched it after my father died. Harper did not sleep that night. Neither did Everett, though kings had better curtains and worse excuses. By 2 in the morning, they were in the West Archive with Miles standing guard at the door, 3 old case boxes open across the table, and her father's name written on papers that smelled like dust, cedar, and lies. Nathaniel Ellison had not been hiding traitors. He had been hiding Omega girls whose families had sold their futures into political mate contracts before they were old enough to understand what a pack alliance meant. There were lists. Not rumors. Lists. Names, Ages, bloodlines, payments disguised as dowries, signatures from noble houses that still sat comfortably in Everett's council chamber. Harper read the first page and felt something inside her go very quiet. My father told me he was helping runaways, she said. I thought he meant girls escaping bad homes. I did not know it went this high. Everett stood across from her, sleeves rolled to his forearms, crown ring lying on the table because he had taken it off without noticing. That mattered more than it should have. Varick signed 3 transfer approvals, he said. Celeste's family signed 2. Harper looked up. And your father? Everett's face hardened. Miles glanced at him, then looked away. Everett turned one page with careful fingers. My father ordered the investigation closed. The room seemed smaller after that. The bond between them pulled, not warm now, but aching, like it knew grief before either of them could speak it. Harper stepped back from the table. So your throne knew. I did not. That is not the same as innocence. He took the hit because it was true. Before he could answer, bells rang from the south corridor. Not alarm bells. Council bells. The kind used when someone wanted witnesses before breakfast. Miles opened the door and swore under his breath, then remembered he was standing near a king and corrected it into a cough. They found something in Miss Ellison's temporary room. Harper already knew. The certainty landed cold in her stomach. By the time they reached the guest wing, half the council had gathered like vultures in expensive coats. Lady Celeste stood near the doorway holding a small glass vial wrapped in Harper's spare handkerchief. Dark powder clung to the bottom like burned pepper. Varick's expression was almost sad. He had practiced it. Blackroot, he said, hidden under her mattress. Harper stared at the vial, then at the room behind him. That room had 2 guards outside it all night. Celeste lowered her eyes. A skilled scent worker would know how to move unnoticed. Harper laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was letting them see her shake. You people are committed. I will give you that. Varick turned to Everett. Your Majesty, this is no longer a matter of compassion. She has access to scent compounds, motive to disrupt the council, and a bloodline tied to treason. Everett looked at the vial, then at Harper. The whole hallway held its breath. Harper waited for him to say what he had seen in the archive. She waited for him to say Varick's name. She waited for the king who had found her twice to choose truth the second time. Everett said nothing, not because he believed Varick. Harper could feel that through the bond. His doubt was not about her. It was about timing, law, witnesses, the throne, the packs watching from every doorway. But silence did not explain itself to a woman who had survived 7 years because nobody spoke for her. Harper's face changed first. The hurt went behind glass. Understood, she said. Everett's eyes sharpened. Harper. She stepped away from him. No. You found me, Your Majesty. Then you let them lose me again. Harper left before dawn because staying would have made her useful to the wrong people. She did not sneak out like a criminal. She walked through the front gate with her bag over one shoulder, her ruined apron folded under her arm, and 2 guards pretending not to notice that neither of them wanted to stop her. The mate bond tugged once behind her ribs, sharp enough to make her pause on the stone road. She did not look back. If Everett Calder wanted to choose the throne over the truth, then the throne could keep him warm. By noon, Harper was 15 miles east, in the border town of Ashford Creek, where the houses leaned into the pine trees and nobody cared about royal manners unless they came with food, medicine, or firewood. The Eastern Pack knew her as the quiet apothecary who fixed fevers, bad knees, frightened pups, and the occasional alpha ego with the same tired expression. She reopened the old clinic behind the feed store, swept dust off the counter, and started over because that was what women without safety nets did. Back at North Star Citadel, Everett learned absence had a scent. Harper's lavender and cedar had faded from the halls, leaving only smoke from the burned greenhouse and the clean, miserable polish of royal duty. He stood in the archive until the candles gave out, reading every page his counsel had kept from him. Miles dropped another file on the table at 3 in the morning. You know, his beta said, for a man who did not believe her fast enough, you are doing an impressive amount of believing after she left. Everett did not look up. Careful. No, Miles said. Careful is what got us here. That finally made Everett raise his eyes. Miles held his ground, which was why Everett had trusted him for 12 years and disliked him at least twice a week. Varick signed the first warrant before the chapel attack happened, Miles said. He did not investigate the Ellisons. He aimed at them. Everett looked down at the signature, old ink on old paper, and something cold settled in him with the weight of a verdict. Before sunrise, bells rang from the eastern tower. Not council bells this time. Border alarms. A rider came in soaked with rain, saying half of Ashford Creek's young wolves were sick after drinking from the ceremonial spring. No blood. No battle. Just panic, shaking hands, gold eyes flashing, families scared enough to pray to anything listening. Everett was on horseback in 5 minutes. He found Harper in the rain outside the clinic, sleeves rolled up, hair plastered to her cheeks, handing cups of bitter tea to sentinels twice her size, while mothers crowded close with children under blankets. The air was thick with blackroot. Someone had poisoned the spring lightly, carefully, not to end lives, but to make the pack look broken. Harper had no scent mask left. Her true Omega scent moved through the storm like a steady lantern, anchoring wolves who were too frightened to find themselves. Everett stopped at the edge of the muddy street. For once, no one bowed. They were all looking at Harper. She saw him after the last young sentinel stopped trembling. Her face did not soften. "If you came to arrest me," she said, voice hoarse from rain and medicine, "take a number." Everett stepped into the mud, crownless, soaked, and quieter than any king had the right to be. "I came to listen." Harper held his gaze while thunder rolled over the pines. "Then start with this," she said. "Your council did not just frame my family. They are still doing it." Everett did not bring Harper back to North Star Citadel under guard. He brought the Citadel to her. By sundown, riders had gone to every allied pack within 200 miles, carrying the same royal summons in sealed black envelopes. Grand Pack Assembly at Ashford Creek. Sunrise. Mandatory attendance. Elder families hated leaving polished floors for muddy roads, which made Harper enjoy the announcement more than she probably should have. By morning, the little border town looked like someone had dropped a kingdom on top of a feed store. Pack banners snapped in the wind. Alpha leaders stood with their betas near the old meeting green. Healers gathered beside Harper's clinic with notebooks, jars, and the exhausted faces of people who had been right for years and ignored anyway. Varric arrived in a dark carriage with Lady Celeste beside him, both looking personally offended by the existence of weather. Harper stood on the clinic steps in a clean gray coat someone from Ashford Creek had found for her. It was too big in the shoulders, but it was dry, which already made it better than most royal favors. Miles came up beside her and handed her a cup of coffee. "From the diner," he said. "Strong enough to make bad decisions seem temporary." Harper took it. "That is the nicest thing anyone from the palace has given me. We are trying to improve the brand." Across the green, Everett stepped onto the flat stone used for old pack oaths. No crown, no throne chair, just the Alpha King standing in mud like everyone else. That mattered. The crowd noticed. Varric noticed too, and his mouth tightened by half an inch. For a man like him, that was basically screaming. "This assembly has been called," Everett said, voice carrying clean across the green, "because Blackroot was planted in royal gear, in a guest room, and in the Ashford Creek ceremonial spring. Because 7-year-old records were altered, and because an Omega family was condemned before evidence was ever heard." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Celeste stepped forward, calm and pale. "Your Majesty, with respect, grief can make even strong leaders vulnerable to personal influence." Her eyes flicked to Harper, especially when a mate bond is involved. The words landed exactly where she wanted them to. People turned, some curious, some afraid, some ready to believe the simplest ugly story. Harper set down her coffee and walked to the stone before anyone could decide she was hiding. "Good," she said. "Let us talk about the bond. Let us talk about scent. Let us talk about all the things this council only trusts when it can use them to control someone." A few Omegas near the healer tents lifted their heads. Harper opened the worn leather case she had carried from the clinic. Inside were scent strips, herb samples, old labels from the royal herbarium, and 3 pages from her father's files. "Blackroot has a dry ash marker that clings to treated leather and sealed glass," she said. "The same marker found in the patrol gloves was found inside a bottle sealed under my father's name 7 years ago." Varric smiled faintly. "An Omega's scent work is not evidence." Everett looked at him. "No, but the Royal Archive is." Miles stepped forward with a locked file box and broke the seal in front of every pack leader there. Inside were warrants, transfer approvals, and a closed investigation order signed before the border chapel attack ever happened. The crowd went quiet in a different way now. Not confused. Listening. Everett lifted the first page. Elder Silas Varick authorized the arrest of Nathaniel Ellison 12 hours before the alleged crime. Harper felt the bond warm, steady this time, not asking for forgiveness, not pulling her closer, just standing with her. Varick's eyes hardened. At last, the mask slipped. I protected the throne, he said, from hidden omegas, false bonds, and weak kings who let sentiment rot a pack from within. Harper looked at him, then at the hundreds of wolves finally hearing the truth. No, she said softly. You protected your power. Varick's words did not shock the assembly because they were cruel. They shocked them because half the room had heard some quieter version of them at dinner tables, council meetings, and polished little gatherings where powerful people called fear tradition. Hidden omegas. False bonds. Weak kings. The phrases hung over Ashford Creek like smoke that everyone had been breathing for too long. Everett stood on the oath stone with the old warrant in his hand, and for the first time all morning, he looked less like a king delivering judgment and more like a man finally understanding the shape of the cage he had inherited. You framed Nathaniel Ellison, he said. Varick lifted his chin. I removed a threat. You poisoned royal gear. I exposed instability. You put Blackroot in a border spring. Varick's eyes moved over the crowd, measuring which leaders still looked afraid enough to save him. I forced the pack to see what softness costs. Harper felt the anger in the crowd change direction. It did not explode. It settled. That was worse for Varick. Wolves were noisy when frightened. They were quiet when they were done listening. Lady Celeste stepped away from him by exactly 1 foot, which was not morality, but it was math. Everett noticed. Harper noticed too. Celeste had always been smart enough to know when a sinking ship had become unfashionable. Miles took the second file from the box and read out the names of Omega girls moved through illegal mate contracts, one after another, each name landing on the green like a bell. Some were alive in the crowd. Some had daughters standing beside them. Some were gone, and the silence after their names said enough. Harper kept her hands still at her sides. She had spent 7 years surviving the lie. Hearing the truth did not make it gentle. It just made it real. Everett turned toward her then, and the bond between them warmed, steady and careful, asking for nothing. He stepped off the oath stone, crossed the muddy green, and stopped in front of her. For one wild second, the whole assembly seemed to hold its breath. Then the Alpha King of North Star Dominion lowered himself to one knee in the mud. Not as a claim, not as a proposal, as an oath older than the crown on his banners. A king admitting wrong before the person his power had failed. Harper stared at him. Everett's voice carried without force. I destroyed the place that kept you safe. I let my council use my silence against you. I treated your hidden truth like a threat before I asked who taught you to hide. His throat moved once. The mate bond does not give me a right to you. It gives me a responsibility to become someone you do not have to survive. Nobody moved. Even the wind seemed to wait. Harper looked down at him, rain still caught in her hair, mud on her boots, grief in her chest sitting right beside something that felt dangerously close to hope. An apology is a start, she said. It is not a repair. Everett nodded. Then I will repair what my throne broke. He rose and faced the assembly. By royal decree, all forced mate contracts under North Star Dominion are void. Scent masking herbs are no longer banned when used for protection or healing. Elder Silas Varick is stripped of council authority pending full pack judgment, and every sealed Omega transfer record will be opened before witnesses. The green erupted, not in cheers at first, but in voices. Names. Questions. Tears. Anger finally finding a door. Varick looked older in an instant. Celeste watched Everett with a pale, unreadable face. As guards moved to escort Varick away, she passed Harper and said softly, You just made every old family in the Dominion your enemy. Harper looked at Everett, then at the Omegas standing taller near the healer tents. Good, she said. They can finally introduce themselves honestly. 3 weeks after the Grand Pack Assembly, the first new Sage plants arrived at North Star Citadel in the back of a dented pickup truck driven by a 7-year-old border healer who told the Royal Guards, Do not salute me, boys. Help me unload dirt. Harper laughed for the first time in days, and Everett, standing beside the ruined foundation of her old greenhouse, Looked like he wanted to write the woman a medal and also apologize to the truck. The new greenhouse was not built behind the palace where nobody could see it. Harper had refused that before the plans were even unfolded. She chose the open ground beside the Royal Healing Ward, between the Sentinel Barracks and the public pack entrance, where any Omega, Beta, Alpha, Stray, Widow, Runaway, or frightened kid with shaking hands could walk in without asking a noble family for permission. Everett did not argue. That was new too. He asked questions, carried lumber, signed decrees, and spent one entire morning learning that Moonmint needed shade while Frost Sage was dramatic about drainage. Harper watched him kneel in the soil where his guards had once shattered her pots. It did not fix everything. Nothing that mattered was ever fixed that cleanly. Varric was gone from the council, stripped of authority and sent north under pact judgment. His allies remained, quieter now, which did not mean harmless. Lady Celeste returned to her family estate with a smile sharp enough to cut ribbon, and half the old bloodlines sent polite letters full of concern, which was palace language for threat. Harper kept every letter in a box labeled compost. Miles said that was disrespectful. Harper said compost had done nothing to deserve the comparison. On the morning the greenhouse opened, the line stretched nearly a quarter-mile down the stone road. Some came for medicine. Some came for records. Some came because, for the first time in their lives, a royal law said their scent belonged to them. Everett stood at the entrance, not in ceremonial armor, not above them on a balcony, but on the ground, where people could look him in the eye if they were brave enough or angry enough. A young Omega girl came forward with her mother and whispered, "Are we allowed inside?" Harper crouched to her height. "You do not have to earn safety here." The girl looked at Everett. He bowed his head, just once. "She is right," he said. That mattered more than any speech. Later, when the crowd thinned and sunset turned the glass walls gold, Harper found Everett replacing a crooked cedar stake near the back row. He had tied it badly. Nobly, but badly. She fixed the knot without comment. He watched her hands. "I am still learning," he said. Clearly, his mouth almost curved. "Is that forgiveness?" Harper looked through the glass at the people moving through the healing ward, at the rebuilt beds of sage, at the place where fear had been turned into a door. "No," she said. "It is a chance." Everett accepted that like a crown heavier than the one he wore. The bond between them rested quietly, no longer a command, no longer a wound, just a road neither of them had to rush. Harper handed him a bundle of fresh herbs tied with plain twine. He studied it. "Another scent mask?" She shook her head. "No. This one helps stubborn alphas listen before they destroy things." Everett let out a low breath that was almost a laugh, and this time, Harper did not look away. Power had failed her when it cared more about control than truth. Loyalty had found her when people chose to stand beside what was right, even after being wrong. Love, she was learning, was not the bond that claimed you fastest. It was the hand that rebuilt what it had broken, then waited, with soil under its nails, until you decided whether to stay.